Typically, if you go into a game store that carries miniatures, there is an elephant in the room: Games Workshop. To their credit, Games Workshop has done very well over the years at making their products dominant in the market. In fact, I was a Games Workshop outrider for years, helping promote their products at conventions, at local game stores. But unfortunately, over the years, in my opinion, the level of investment required from both the retailer and the consumer has become a bit of a problem. It tends to crowd other products out of the marketplace and limit the available options to consumers. So, today on Gaming with ADHD, I want to talk about 3 science fiction miniatures games for you to consider as an alternative. And I'll also include a couple of extra games that are more like board games, but still scratch that tabletop war game itch. So, with that being said, like I said, Games Workshop is the dominant player in the tabletop miniatures market. And because of that tendency to crowd other games out of the retail space. So it may sound like I'm promoting hate for Games Workshop around here. First off, there is no hate. If you like Games Workshop, I am glad that you found a game that you enjoy. I still have some of my models from Games Workshop. I still look at the announcements that they put out. But they are kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room. So I like to look at different options, different alternatives out there. So I just want to spread the love around a little bit. Let's see what some of the other options are out there. Now, the first one that I want to talk about is Deadzone from Mantic Games. Now, quick disclaimer, I am currently a Mantic Pathfinder, and I do help promote their products at conventions such as Adepticon and Gen Con. The opinions here are absolutely my own, but I do want you to be informed where if I'm giving you my opinion, you know any potential biases that I may have. So, some of the background about the game. It was second edition was first released in 2016. Its current army list come out of the escalation expansion, but most all of the rules that are in the second edition rulebook are still valid, and the lists are actually pretty well done in the core rulebook. So if you're just getting started and all you have is the core rulebook, you'll be perfectly fine. There are 10 different factions in the game, and the current starter set is $79.99. From Mantic Games, it comes with a digital rulebook and then a physical book for escalation, so you get the current army lists. It includes all of the dice that you would need, 8-sided dice for making your rolls, and then also special command dice that the game uses, and any tokens that may be required. It also includes some of the Deadzone terrain and a paper playmat for you to use. And then for models, it has 10 Enforcers and 10 Forge Fathers, which are sort of a space dwarf faction. So what do I like about this game? First off, it uses a cube movement system. So all models have a movement value, which includes both their movement and their sprint values. And when you give them an action, the only thing you have to worry about is, do you cross over the line from one cube to another? And if you do, that uses 1 movement point. In addition, if you move anywhere within the cube that you currently occupy, that also will use a movement. But you can put your model anywhere in the cube. It gives it a very dynamic feel, which also helps remove some of the problems that you have in other games where you're having to measure with a tape measure and gets very specific amounts of movement. So I like how the cube movement just very dramatically simplifies it while still allowing for tactical flexibility, because you can put it behind a crate, you can put it behind a wall, put it to the right of an opening in a wall, things like that. So it's still very, very flexible without having to be very exact with a measuring tape. It also uses fixed target numbers. Now, to me, this is fantastic. I don't ever have to worry about, okay, is it, so far away that I get a +1 to my dice rolls, or he's wearing specific armor, so it's a -2 to my dice rolls. And so then I'm constantly having to recalculate what target number I need. In Deadzone, if your model has a 4+ to shoot, so anytime you roll dice for 4 or higher, doesn't matter. It's always a 4+. If there are any modifiers, it's going to affect the number of dice that you roll. So if you get a bonus modifier, you'll instead of rolling 3 dice, you'll roll 4 dice, or 5, whatever the bonus is. And if you get a penalty, you'll roll less dice. So instead of 3 dice, it'll go down to 2 or to 1. So, it makes it in my opinion, a much easier game to grab because you're not having to worry about a lot of the crazy modifiers. In addition, I think the game is extremely affordable. If you don't want to go with the starter sets, you can get one of the faction starters. All of the factions, except for Maison Labs, come or have their own starter set. It's $40. And they also have a booster set, which is also $40. The starter set is going to have all of your core models. It'll have a unit leader, it'll have basic troops, and it'll have a couple of specialist type models. So it still gives you enough flexibility. You have enough models, enough points worth of models that you can even try out different lists just using a starter set. But if you pick up the booster set, you'll get bonuses, or not bonuses, but you'll get a lot more specialist type units, a lot more, specialty commanders, things like that. So, basically for $80, you can have almost all of the types of models available for a particular faction, and be able to make many, many different lists. In fact, usually you can even make multiple lists just out of those 2 boxes. But if you're just getting into it, you can start with the core box for that faction for $40. And to me, that's a great deal and something I really like about the game. Now, the starter does, like I said, it has plenty to play with. The booster adds variety. And then also for the game, I think the rules are very light, but it doesn't affect the level of strategy. Where I'm putting my models after they move, what models I'm bringing in my unit. There's plenty of strategy. There's plenty of things that are going to affect. There's no one particular list that's going to dominate. Mantic tries very hard to actually keep the game balanced so that Rebels players are going to have just as good a chance against Enforcers, who are going to have just as good a chance against Veermen. Whatever the faction is that you're playing. In addition, there is no dominant faction. In games like 40K, pretty much most of the effort, in my opinion, seems to go into the Space Marines. I know they do new models for the factions, and they don't ignore them, and they always do get a codex at some point. But all of the love definitely gets put towards the Space Marines, in my opinion, and Deadzone doesn't do that. You can pick your faction and feel like Mantic is going to keep supporting that faction just as well as the others. Now, what do I not like about the game? Well, my biggest dislike is that it's a lot harder to find in stores. Again, going back to that 800-pound gorilla issue we were talking about earlier. Mantic has been working to improve their footprint, but right now, at least locally, it's kind of hard to see it in stores. I know some have tried it in the past. I know I could probably do better as a Mantic Pathfinder, but again, you have that 800-pound gorilla where everybody's already carrying Games Workshop and they don't usually want to add in another miniatures line. So, why do I recommend Deadzone? Number one, low-cost quality miniatures. They're not the greatest miniatures in the world, but they're really good. They've gotten even better over the time that I've been playing the game, and I'm perfectly happy to have these on my shelf and to play with them. I think the gameplay is very fun. I've enjoyed the games that I've gotten to play. Haven't played as much recently, but it's definitely a game that I would enjoy just pulling out and throwing down on the table when I have a chance. On top of that, I think Mantic does a really good job at supporting all of their product lines. Especially Deadzone being one of their biggest ones. I think they do plenty of support as far as the demonstration teams. I think they do great support at the conventions. Gen Con, Adepticon always get good turnouts for the tournaments. Mantic really does their work to help make the players feel appreciated. So that's what I like about Deadzone. It's not necessarily the number. I didn't put these in any particular order. It was just the first order that they came to me. But if you want to give it a chance, I'll have a link down below where you can pick up the models and the miniatures. All right. So the next one on my list is Infinity from Corvus Belli. Now, the current version is N4, and it was released last year, 2020. N4 is the full rules, and last year they also introduced what they call Code 1. Code 1 is a streamlined starter version, is a way to put it. It has less factions available, less models available, but all of the models are still usable in N4. And when I say less models available, I mean less models available for army building. There are 8 different factions and multiple sub-factions in N4. Code 1 tries to keep everything just to the core factions. There are currently 4 available in Code 1. 2 more are going to be added later this year in 2021. Now, the operation sets, currently Operation Kaldstrom is the current starter set. It includes the Code 1 rules, and it retails for $129.99 US. It has 7 models for 2 different factions. Okay, so it's 7 models each, so a total of 14 models. It also has the dice that you need. It uses a D20 system. Tokens, templates, because it does use flamer templates, blast templates. It also includes some great cardboard terrain. It's a slot together terrain. It looks really good when it's complete. I'll actually do a review later because it's a little squirrely in its assembly, but overall it's really, really good. And then it does also come with a paper playmat similar to Deadzone. Now, what do I like about the game? First off, the models are gorgeous. Okay, Infinity is not going to be a budget option. The models are all metal, which does increase the cost. But you're also playing with under N4. The most number of models that you would bring is less than 20. Officially, it's 15. But there are drones and little things that you can attach to models that can increase that number slightly. So at most, you're going to have 15 to 20 models total. Typically, you'll have around 10. And they're fantastic. They're gorgeous looking models. I have a big variety. I've gotten all of the operation sets since Ice Storm in N3. And they just look really, really good. So I love the way the models look. The factions are very varied. There are 2 non-human factions, the Combined Army and the Toha. The Combined Army is a general bad guy. Toha are sort of allied with humans in general, but not entirely trusted either, so can still kind of be bad guys. But then the other 6 are actually all human, so it's based off of Earth, and so they're all related to human nations. They all have very distinct looks. For example, the Ariadna, because of the lore in the story, they were cut off after they went and explored their planet, and so they were cut off for a long time. And so their technology hasn't advanced as far, but they are very hardy, scrappy survivors. So their models look, I would say, the closest to modern, but still with a futuristic look, but very hard, very angular lines. Whereas a faction like Pan-Oceania has very smooth battle armor, has very sleek styling to it. But then you get everything in between. All of the factions, have a similar look because they're all, mostly human, but they all do have a distinct look so that they still, you can still tell them apart, and get some of their individual flavor. Now, locally, there's a decent sized community. A couple of stores do carry it, so it's not hard to find. They also have a good presence at conventions. They do go to Gen Con, they do go to Adepticon, and they definitely have a great staff. So I definitely recommend. I definitely do like that about them. Now, a couple of things I do want to point out. I don't necessarily think they're good or bad, but they're just interesting. The dice rolls are always opposed. Okay, so if I'm going to shoot at your model, you're going to get to roll for a defense on that. Now, I'm trying to roll under a target number. So, say I'm trying to roll a 15. Any kind of a roll from 1 to 15 would be counted as a success. And as long as I roll higher than my opponent, then I'll succeed. Except for if my opponent's target number, if they roll exactly it. So say they needed a 10 and I rolled a 12. Well, with my target number being a 15, 12 is still a success, but a 10 for him is a critical success. So his 10 will automatically cancel out my 12. So you definitely need to keep that in mind. There's also what's called the automatic reaction order. For long-term players, you would consider this to be more Overwatch. So basically, anytime your opponent activates a model, that model is able to, any model that is able to, can react to it. So, say I move my model out into the open, and there's 4 enemy models that can see it. All of them can react to it. They could either dodge, they could shoot. The number of options are limited, but technically I could move my model out into the open and have it die before I'm able to do anything with it. So just something to think about. Now, what do I dislike about Infinity? So first off, this game is a challenge for me. As the title of the channel suggests, gaming with ADHD, this game requires basically an always-on attention. Because with the automatic reaction order, you have to know what your opponent's doing. You have to know what your models, where your models are, what their options are. And so for me, the rules aren't too complex, but with that required focus, at the end of a game, I can be checked out, and it's going to take me a little bit to recover. Where most games, either I'm going to move all of my side, or I'm going to activate and do something with a model, uninterrupted, I might add. I get at least a few minutes of downtime, whereas with the ARO, number one, it's a full side activation, but I have to be paying attention to what my opponent is doing as well. Now, I realize that technically that is the case in all games, but with this, for me, it's it is definitely a bit of a challenge. So, with that being said, why do I recommend it? Well, like I said, the miniatures are gorgeous. I really, really love the look of the game. Even with the automatic reaction order, the automatic reaction order does tend to slow the game down. You're still going to play your games in about 2 hours, even with only 15 models per side, but it still feels fast. You still are constantly doing things back and forth between you and your opponent. So I like the way that the game feels. It's fun. I think they also have fantastic back-end support. I think War Machine and Hordes might be the only games that have really good army builder apps. Games Workshop, they've tried putting out digital army construction software in the past, but it's never done very well. I know they have their app now. I have not looked at it, but the Infinity app is free. It's constantly updated as they're releasing new models into the game, so the rules are getting added in, but it's not but it works very well. It's very easy to use. Why more miniatures games aren't using apps yet, I don't know. I realize there is definitely the cost to develop it, but nowadays there's a lot of app developers out there. I don't see why they aren't doing it. In addition, on that back-end support, their tournament registration and tracking system that they've got. It uses a chess ELO system. So as you win or lose versus your opponent, it'll actually track your ranking against other players. So when you want to be able to say, "Oh, I'm number 10 worldwide," well, of the recorded tournaments, you've got some proof of that. And it will track your history of what you've played, where you've played. And I think that's fantastic. I wish more companies would get on that. So overall, I really like Infinity. Yes, it's hard for me, but I'll keep picking it up because it's just a great game. So next one on the list is Stargrave from Osprey Games. This was released this year, 2021, and it has the same developer as Joseph McCullough, who developed Frostgrave. It is a scenario-based team skirmish with leveling options. So sort of like a role-playing game, but it basically just focuses on a miniatures combat scenario. Now, with that being said, this is brand new. I do not yet have a copy, but based on the history of Frostgrave, I'm still going to recommend it as one to check out. So what do I like about it? Number one, it's miniatures agnostic. Now, I saw something over on Tabletop Minions this weekend talking about miniatures agnostic games and how that sometimes presented as a negative, but it's not supposed to be. Okay, all that means is find the miniatures that you want to use. Reaper's got great miniatures. Deadzone's got great miniatures. Or Mantic for Deadzone has great miniatures. Infinity's got great miniatures. So you can use whatever miniatures you have, whatever miniatures you want. Use your Games Workshop miniatures. That's fine. The point is they're going to focus on the rules. They're not focusing on making a line of plastic models to sell you. Now, it uses a single dice roll mechanic, so you roll a d20 to resolve everything. Okay, and that's you're at most you're rolling one d20 at a time. You're not rolling buckets of it. Now, As I said, I like that you also get to just reuse the existing models. All you have to do is buy the rules to get into this game. You can reuse your terrain, reuse your models, etc. Now, what do I dislike about it? Again, store availability can be an issue with no accompanying miniatures line. The miniatures line is usually what helps drive sales for the rules, and so sometimes not having the miniatures line to go with it can be a problem. Stores may not know about it, may not want to carry it, etc. So why do I recommend it? Well, I realize I don't have the book. I haven't read everything through yet, but the Stargrave community is, very devoted. It's since it came out, the amount that I've seen at conventions, that I've seen, all over the place, Stargrave really made a name for itself. And from my understanding, Stargrave it's not just a reskin with a science fiction theme. They have done some to it to change it up from what I understand. But, if you've already got that devoted following, there's got to be something to the rules on it. Again, they're just focusing on the rules. They're not, because they don't have to worry about, are we putting out miniatures? They can focus on making the rules better. So, overall, absolutely recommend you give Stargrave a look-see. So, I've talked about 3, tabletop war games, or science fiction war games. So, I do want to point out 2 other games. These are just going to be really quick, but I want to point them out because I think they still fit that. They fit that look of and feel of a miniatures war game, while being closer to a board game in feel. So, first one is Battletech from Catalyst Game Labs. Now, I recommend this because, to start with, you can get the beginner box that I've got pictured here for $20. It comes with 2 miniatures, a map, the rules so that you know how to play. It is literally streamlined for you to be able to get in and play the game. In fact, a friend of mine even played it with his 4-year-old daughter. Okay. Not super accurate. Or was it his wife? One of the two. He's getting the ladies at his house into it. So, but also Battletech is responsible for getting me into the hobby. The first hobby gaming product that I actually bought was the Robotech role-playing game, but it was Battletech that actually got me into playing. All I did with the Robotech books was just buy them and read them. So, overall, the game has it's been improved, but for the most part has remained mostly the same for the last 30 years. The rules have been, we'll say, more streamlined, or not even streamlined, but more just corrected for clarification. But you can still get technical readouts from 30 years ago, and be able to play with those, using the current rule set. So it's very much held up. On top of that, the storyline for the game is one of the most developed out there. To me, the biggest thing about a game is, what is the story? Why am I playing this game? What does it mean? Why are the different factions there? And Battletech literally has been publishing a consistent storyline for over 30 years. And it's very good. It's very developed. It's very fun. It keeps drawing me in. So, if you want a fun game of giant stompy robots shooting at each other, blowing each other up, definitely give Battletech a look for only $20. It ain't gonna hurt you. You can usually even find it cheaper on places like Amazon. They also have the Game of Armored Combat, which is the standard starter box, and they also have the Clan Invasion box, which all of those add more miniatures, more maps, and there's plenty of books, plenty of source books, plenty of novels, plenty of things to get into. Definitely recommend this one. Now, last one I want to recommend is Dreadball. Now, Dreadball is the science fiction sports game of the future. It's just a lot of fun. It is, yes, it is more of a sports game, but with the core set retailing for $84.99, I am going to get an unboxing actually here probably this week. But there are more than 30 different teams available right now. It uses a similar dice mechanic to Deadzone, using just D6 instead of D8s. And basically that means you're going to start with a basic number of dice in your pool, and any bonuses or penalties are going to add or subtract dice to your roll. It's a lot of fun. You can play a game, sometimes in 5 minutes, depending on how it goes. But for the most part, you could get a good game in 30 minutes to an hour, and just have a lot of fun. So, those are 3 science fiction miniatures games and 2 others that I recommend that you check out that don't come from Games Workshop. So, if you like what I showed you, please put a comment down below. Let me know that. If you have different suggestions, if there's a game that you think needs a little bit more love that maybe I should check out, put a comment down below. Let me know. I definitely want to get some more feedback on that. But if you like the video, give it a like. If you haven't yet, I would absolutely appreciate a subscription to the channel. I'm trying to get a short video out every day. And just talk about the many different things that I like about gaming. So, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.